Bases dropped on a new week of soccer down here. Welcome to Soccer's Morning Show. John here, Jarrett there. And obviously there's stuff to discuss, and it's on a couple of different fronts. Obviously with MLS training camps up and running, you're seeing the videos of players running in rectangles, perhaps the occasional passing drill. And we're that much closer to camps. And I think I'm trying to do math, Jarrett. Was it 19 days before the
It's 9:06 on a Monday. Why are you doing math?
Well, I mean, when's the match in Chattanooga? 25th, 28th, something like that?
Something like that.
Okay, so we're like 2+ weeks away from Atlanta United in Chattanooga taking on Chattanooga FC. And so we are thank you, Nix. Yes, the 28th, 19 days. So I'm glad Nix is awake enough to do the math for all of us. So we're 19 days away from Chattanooga FC. We're a little over a month away from AmFam 2, Electric Boogaloo. And, we'll keep an eye on things. We got questions. We got stuff. We got thoughts. Biggest thing to put your thinking cap on this morning is for those of you who are following Atlanta United, morning DM Tim, what position group are you paying the most attention to? And choice D, all of the above, is an acceptable answer before you lead into your specific position group. Keeper, backline, midfield, forward. What position group are you keeping an eye on the most as Atlanta United hits training camp? So we got that. We've got some changes to the game that have been suggested by a German official, and I wanted to get into that this morning. And there's, news and Stevenage knocking off Aston Villa, King of Cups, Unai Emery loses, and FA Cup. And strangely enough, the FA Cup has scheduled the idea of possibly Manchester City, and if Arsenal gets past Oxford United today, in the round 4, you'd end up with Manchester City and Arsenal. Who knew that such a random thing could ever happen for the 4th round of the FA Cup? So there's plenty to talk about this morning. What's on your mind? Let us know. Share it all off, and we'll be rocking and rolling all morning long. So John here, Jarrett there. An opening kickoff this morning, Jarrett, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. As I feverishly try to find the QR code for those watching on Twitch. There it is. It is our friends at Kickoff Coffee, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Kickoff Coffee CO, kickoffcoffeeco.com. So for the opening kickoff this morning, Roberto Martinez didn't stay unemployed for long, did he, Jarrett?
No, he didn't, and one has to wonder how and or why.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all, remember the time Belgians had a golden generation and I think only won a 3rd place medal with said golden generation?
Or didn't get out of group stage.
Or didn't get out of. Well, I mean, they did win that 3rd place. What, last World Cup was it?
Yeah, I think it was last World Cup. Yeah, not the one that just recently completed in.
No. Yeah, the 2018 edition. Yeah.
Which was 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, this World Cup that just happened, they didn't get out of the group stage.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
But they moved on from that manager. But that manager has found a home in Portugal because that's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. I can't see how this ends poorly for anyone.
Nope. The way it was worded, new Portugal manager a month after leaving Belgium, failing to get out of the group stage with them at the World Cup, from Ben Jacobs. Martinez asked if CR37 is a part of his plans. Quote, "I'm not a coach who makes hasty decisions. I want to meet everyone. Cristiano's part of that list. He spent 19 years with the national team and deserves respect. We're going to give all players an opportunity. Cristiano is one of them."
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was your nebulous quote in an attempt to try to win the press conference.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, we talk about this all the time in college football. Winning the press conference is vital to some people. Mm-hmm. It is like it is for like some people in administration and boosters. You can absolutely have these situations where it's like, winning the press conference is as important, if not more important, than winning games, that sort of thing.
Right.
So,
with your biggest star, you sit there out of the blocks and you say exactly what you're supposed to say, even if he is 37 years old and he's making $11 billion with Al Nasser. Speaking of managers, before we spin into the thoughts about Atlanta United and the rest of Major League Soccer this morning, I think it was L'Equipe who announced that apparently the U.S. Soccer Federation shot their shot with Zinedine Zidane. Apparently, they were like, hey, dude, if we call, will you pick up the phone? And apparently, they reached out in some manner, way, shape, or form. And Zidane was like, cool you got my number, but thanks, but no thanks. But what is it that Wayne Gretzky said? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes. I mean, hey, you know what? You don't know the answer until you ask them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you ask the guy, and apparently Didier Deschamps is going to be staying for at least another little while longer, and so he's still going to be the head of the French national team. But I thought this was interesting. French Football Federation President Noël Le Graët, he came under fire today as he was forced to apologize for what he dubbed his own, quote, clumsy remarks, end quote, about Zidane's potential interest in coaching the French national team. Le Graët had quipped dismissively, and this is from our friends at The Score, in an interview to French radio station RMC yesterday, that he wouldn't have even taken his call on the phone when asked whether Zidane had rung him to express an interest in taking over as coach for Deschamps. That drew criticism from France and PSG star Kylian Mbappe, who said Le Graët had shown a lack of respect with his comments. Real Madrid, where Zidane enjoyed decorated spells as a player and coach, also hit out at Le Graët, while French sports minister Amélie Oudéa-Castéra waded in too, demanding an apology. The 81-year-old head of the Triple F duly did apologize on Monday, Le Graët saying, quote, "I would like to apologize for these remarks, which absolutely do not reflect my views, nor my consideration for the player he was and the coach he has become. I gave an interview to RMC that I should not have given because they were looking for controversy by opposing Didier and Zinedine Zidane, two greats of French football. I admit that I made some clumsy remarks which created a misunderstanding," end quote. Deschamps' contract expired after the World Cup, and France lost to Argentina in the penalty shootout. Deschamps Saturday signed a new deal to stay in the job until the 2026 World Cup. So, so here's the text of the interview. In the RMC interview, whether Zidane had called him in recent days, Le Graët dismissed him as having been a potential candidate. Quote, "I wouldn't have even taken his call. To tell him what? Hello, sir. Don't worry. Look for another club. I just agreed a contract with Didier." Le Graët also responded curtly to reports of Zidane's interest in coaching the Brazil team. "I would be surprised if he left for there. It's up to him what he does. It's not my business. I've never met him, and we've never considered parting with Didier Deschamps. He can go where he wants, to a club. He'd have as many as he wants in Europe. A big club, but a national side is hardly credible to my mind." Yeah. And then, of course, Le Graët comes back and he's like, yeah, sorry, I made clumsy remarks. I think that was that's a lot. That's a lot of clumsy remarks.
I mean, we're just going to reset how many days has it been since a national team has been dumb, and just reset it to 0. That's okay.
Yes, just reset it.
We'll try again tomorrow, I guess.
Just reset it.
I like the idea of all this because I like that it dispels the illusion that anyone may or may not have that national teams and the like are or the people in charge of them are brilliant and wonderful, and they must be thinking on a different level and legitimate galaxy brain, but not in a joking manner. No, you have an absolute ton of idiots doing these jobs. Follow your dreams, because if idiots can do it, so can you.
Yes. And
just because somebody can formulate a game plan does not make them qualified to tie their own shoes.
No. So, Ricky, I get Zidane wants France. We all get that. But if Deschamps is going to be there through 26, just coach us through a cycle and go take France. After I'm fine with that. Go take France after. I'm fine with that. So, yeah. So, but I wonder it's great that Deschamps has been signed by Noel Legret for another cycle. We all know about multi-cycle coaches and success rates, at least somewhat domestically. But yeah, I wonder though, how much of a, and I understand with all of the talent that's there, I get it. But I wonder if there's a result that goes the other way for France, just how much of a leash Deschamps gets. I mean, if there's something catastrophic where, they don't win a tournament that they should have, and the Wolves are at the door, and everybody who's a keyboard warrior sits there and starts kvetching about it. I wonder if there's going to be any situation where Deschamps is not safe between now and 26.
I mean, in theory, I guess it could happen. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so kind of where I'm at with it, man.
Ricky's like, what's the issue? You going to love us too much when we make a semifinal?
I mean,
that should be an expectation for 26. It really should if you're the U.S.
I know.
It should be. But yeah, so as of right now, Anthony Hudson will be in charge for the for the camp and for the 2 matches this month. So we'll see what happens with Anthony Hudson in charge. Like I said, I mean, it's 2 matches. It's January. It's just kind of right there. I know that a lot of you who are watching or listening are probably having some Anthony Hudson, Colorado Rapids flashbacks. I understand that, but like I said, it's January and it's 2 matches and it's a camp, and so we'll see what goes on with that. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting when with a couple of national teams and Roberto Martinez, who, yeah, you kind of run out of sentences. It's like, when Kevin De Bruyne says your team is too old and it was structured in that way and you don't make it out of group, and then instantaneously, like a month later, you're now going to be in charge of folks like Bruno Fernandes and that. So a younger group, so you couldn't get out of group with an older group that a lot of folks had a golden generation, and now a younger team that's supposedly in a golden generation with CR37 lurking and his specter hanging over the whole thing. It'll be interesting. That's the word that I'm going to use. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on in Portugal instead of saying what's going on in Belgium. Belgium! We'll see what's going on in Portugal. That's your opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code once again for those watching on Twitch. And when you go to kickoffcoffeeco.com or go to kickoffcoffeeco on social media, use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off of your purchase, and they in turn take 10% reinvested into the youth game at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. All right. Early thoughts this, since training camp is training camp, what I wanted to do this morning was ask folks, who I imagine saw. And by the way, good to see Abby and everybody. Welcome Thiago Almada back at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport and Intergalactic Spaceport. Great to see the response when Thiago.
Whether you go to heaven or hell, you got to go through Atlanta first.
Correct.
Don't forget.
Exactly. You have
when
to.
You die.
Yes. You change planes in Atlanta. Yes. Yeah. William Hurt, accidental tourist. I actually remembered that. But yeah, great to see everybody show their love and support for Thiago Almada when he made it to the airport. I imagine that he has been on one continuous party ever since the Albiceleste won the world competition, as he should have been. But it's good to have him back. We saw the videos of everybody wandering out onto the practice field. Wandering into the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training facility, wandering out the back door, running in rectangles and doing drills and things like that. And so I wanted to ask this morning, and I know that, like I said, I know choice D is an acceptable answer, but I wanted to know if there was a specific position group that you were paying more attention to than others. And I'll run through the list that we have so far, and this will be kind of a continuous thing this morning. Nix is striker and backline. Niall is forward. Ricky is striker. DM Tim, center back and striker. Niall is adding center back too, and it's good to have a contributor Niall back for a couple of weeks, helping out with Prem and Proper. Ricky is center back also. Emilio went choice D, the striker, center back, manager, midfield in that order. So that's the early returns. Parzival's in the midfield. Ricky, I don't know outside of Jackson Conway. I don't know what the number 9 looks like on this team. So, like I said, Jarrett, it's understandable that folks are going to have choice D, but but in taking the early straw poll, folks are sitting there and they're looking at various and sundry sections. And I guess if somebody says one thing, then somebody else is going to fill in the blanks with the other. So, yeah, there's a lot to look at. Where specifically for you, what position group are you looking at?
I mean, striker's a good shout in my opinion, because you don't know what it's going to look like. You've seen the rumors last week about the discussions with Joseph Martinez possibly being moved either in the league or out of the league. Dwyer not being here anymore. Now it's Jackson Conway. You get the word yesterday that Tristan Traeger is not going to be back. And the thing with Traeger is like I think he's kind of we talked about this. I think he's kind of in between.
Yeah,
like Traeger could go. I do think he's too good for MLS Next Pro.
Yes.
He can go to USL team and really sharpen up and get better and see if, what he's got. They might have decided like, look, you're not going to be in line to get minutes with, the first team, but you're also probably not going to get better playing for the second team.
Yeah.
Playing in MLS Next Pro.
You're definitely in an in-between situation with Tristan Traeger.
Yeah, and it's tough for him. It's a tough place to be. But go out and see if you can land somewhere else and see if you can take that jump. Because I really like what Traeger gave you last year. Coming in the middle of the season due to his obligation to the Air Force Academy. It's really good. See what he can give you. See what he can give. See what he can give another team. I know when we talked to Kaylor Hodges after the Birmingham game, I know Kaylor raved about getting to finally see him play. He was a huge fan of it.
Yep.
We'll go ahead.
22 appearances and 8 goals last year for Atlanta United too. And Tristan Traeger. Let's see, signed on June the 1st, July 5th, named USL Championship Player of the Week, first brace in the 4-3 win against Charleston, pair of goals against El Paso Locomotive in a 2-2 draw. And I mean, you look at and the relationships that were formed out there with Traeger and just the ease at times that he and Jackson were integrating out there. I mean, it was great to see his growth, but remember, you're only talking about someone who, after 58 appearances at the Air Force Academy, only played in 22 games with Atlanta United too. So 22 professional matches under his belt. And, I don't think I think that there's still some learning that has to be done, to use that word specifically. You've got to get reps. You've got to get reps. And I think that right now Tristan Traeger is in the in-betweens. And, I think that if he was in MLS Next Pro, I think that, I just think that you've learned more than you probably would have if you were coming into MLS Next Pro in the first place. But I think that you haven't had enough reps to be ready for Major League Soccer. And so to your point, I think he right now is in the in-betweens. And I think that, obviously finding a new home is a good thing for him. I think that USL Championship, I think you're spot on. And I'm looking forward to seeing where that next step is so he can continue to grow his professional game here in the U.S.
Yeah, it seems like he's got that opportunity to take that step. We'll see if it happens. But aside from that, to bring it back to the original point, aside from that, you have Jackson Conway. We were assuming with Atlanta United too, Daniel Sabatu is going to be involved in that. Played really well against Aberdeen in the friendly a couple months ago. Yes. Sabatu's coming off a knee injury. When he played in 21, he is a grown man physically. Still has to develop, but you want to see what you've got in him. And I think MLS Next Pro will be a chance to see what you have in him, because if he kills it, he might be one of those guys you're looking at for a homegrown deal. but you got to see what you've got with him. You got to see what he can give you to see if he has that big ceiling that he might have. Because physically it's similar to Jackson. Although I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Sabachu has more of that raw, freakish athleticism, whereas Jackson's really athletic, like more so than you think. It's almost like sneaky athletic.
Yeah.
Where like Jackson is just so big, you're like, that's just a powerful back to go. Oh God, he can run.
Yes.
Oh God, he can move.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, he can move. Whereas like you think like, he's just that big back to goal number 9. No, he can do a lot. But you want to see what you got in those guys. So strikers want to look at. To Tom's point, you see the thing about Joseph, and if you clear that DP spot, I'd imagine that you're going to go hunting with lots of money for the next striker, and that could change. And this is the whole thing right now, where we're talking about position groups, while also knowing that we, as quickly as we have seen these moves develop, and this is the thing that I have to like remind myself about to keep everything in perspective. As quickly as we saw these moves develop, like Marcelino Moreno's hit, and like we heard about it, and the loan was done inside of like 3 or 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Incoming moves can work in a similar fashion if you're running a tight ship.
Yes.
We might not hear about anything incoming until like we're right up against it, depending on where it's coming from. Argentina, maybe not as much, because you have your S-tier sources and the interconnectivity of those sources and the agents and the clubs in Argentina.
Yes.
But everything can kick off really damn quickly, and I'd imagine as much GAM, as much space as they're clearing on the roster, and as much money as they are clearing, I'd imagine there's going to be some incoming moves. Here's the question, though, for everybody. And I know people are going to have different opinions on this, and that's fine by me. How do people feel if they leave a spot open until the summer? Does it have to be filled for you right now? Well, let's say you end up with a DP spot going into summer. Does it have to be filled right now, or how do you feel about if they wait till summer and they find a better deal, or find somebody who can be here in the summer, that sort of thing, and can hold serve till then?
Well, and I know that the way that you look for talent can be that indicator, or it can be a contraindicator in that case. If you're looking for that heavyweight, and Ricky says it doesn't because I know Garth's MO. And if you go back and you look at bringing in an Albert Rusnak, I mean, that was one of those deals that was an absolute stunner. And so you look at those kinds of things as, I guess, your baseline with Garth as a part of the administration now. But remember, Garth is more business side now with his new gig. Yes, he has input and so on, but he's more business side with this new title and these new challenges that he has. So I think that if you can find folks that fit, and you still have that DP slot in your in your hip pocket, then I think that it's what the market will bear for you right now. And remember, we've made moves. Atlanta United has made moves right up to the beginning, or right up to the end of training camp, the beginning of the season. Burned. Wouldn't be surprised if they go to Liga MX and sign a proven South American striker from there, like Lagerwey signed Raul Ruiz. More proven quantities. Won't be some young kid from South America. That's over. So I mean, we'll see in that regard. Barzal going back and forth with Emilio. Fan base won't have the patience to watch someone develop that pace, regardless of if they're cheaper. I don't think it's an idea of developing. I don't think it's developing pace. I think that if you see someone who's young, and you can get them for that, remember, you still have the young DP slots available too. And
Barzal, to your point. Jackson Conway is not exactly a fleet of foot. I'm just saying he's faster than people expected him to be, in my opinion. I don't mean to imply that Jackson Conway is, some speed demon. But he's fat. He's more athletic than I think he gets credit for.
Yeah, and the thing is that with Jackson, it's consistency at the first team level. I think that's what you're looking for, because there were times at a second team where you were looking for things from Jackson, and Jackson would have an off night at the worst possible time. And so I think that if Jackson is going to stay first team, it's going to be the consistency is what you're going to be looking for Jackson Conway there. I know that looking at other position groups and such, I know that there were rumors out there about and discussions about the possibility of chasing after Alexander Cayens. And it's Atlanta United and Boca. Remember, though, you're only looking at, what was it, Jared, a 15% increase in the salary cap with the new TV deal. So you've got that to kind of juggle in all of this. And so Atlanta United's in that discussion. And also, I know that, Jared, you saw with Luis Araujo, there was discussions, but once again, we're getting into, remember, as Jared always says, and we always sit here and remind you this time of year, for the next 30 days, has September, April, June, and November, all the rest of 31, 22 days, at least from the beginning in this January transfer window. Check your S-level sources. Check your sources. And I know that there was talk, Jared, you saw with Luis Araujo and Palmeiras this past weekend. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it was Ricky who put that in the feed on the Discord. I can't remember if it was Ricky who did it, but somebody put in the Discord. There's a rumor out of Brazil that Palmeiras is looking at Luis Araujo and trying to negotiate with him. I know it came from, I saw somebody link to it who had like 16,000 followers, had journalists in their title. And this is tricky for me because I always want to be really careful having this conversation.
Yes.
Because I don't want to discredit anybody and say someone isn't a reliable source. I don't know them as a source.
Right.
So I don't know. They might be legit. They might be batting damn near 1,000.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sit there and tell you don't acknowledge them because we don't know them. Mm-hmm. No, they're the unknown, and we haven't dealt with Brazilian sourcing a lot.
Right.
We've gotten really damn good at Argentina. Yeah, we've gotten really damn good at other parts, but Brazil's a different animal, and it's just a foreign concept to us in terms of getting an idea of what's a good source and what's not a good source down there. But yeah, you have that rumor as well that allegedly Palmeiras is interested in Luis Araujo. Which, hey, if you do that, that's another DP spot, and that's a lot of damn potential money in spots coming free if that happens. Burns, Ricky, that's the thing. I don't know how legit everything is right now. The whole thing. Burns' point, I like the idea of having Conway playing USL the whole season and get minutes was the correct one, but the twos roster is so flawed. Yeah, it's. I'm wondering, like, what is Jackson this year? Because hell, now we can take that. We can take that to. We can take it to the idea of like what's Jackson's role this year, because I think now is like put up or shut up time for Jackson to be a part of this. To be a part of this game plan.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it's going to lay out. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, but once again, you look at Jackson. Jackson is exactly, Tom. Yeah, Messi's incoming this summer. Absolutely.
Hey, you told people Messi was coming in, they'd be like, "Yeah, sure, man."
Yeah, exactly. At this point,
we'll wait.
But no, and I think that there are, you literally could go to, and that's why I wanted to break it down into position groups, because each position group has its own storylines. And with, you're looking at, we're talking up top, the questions with Joseph Martinez, the questions with Jackson Conway. You need a backup striker. Who's it going to be? with Byrne once again. My point is Conway's a better player than he was able to show last season. Maybe he can make the jump to MLS. But once again, I think that, Jarrett, to your point, it's put up or shut up.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think he can. Especially as the season went on, I thought he got better and more productive. One of my biggest frustrations with Conway last season was early in the season. What's it, the first or second game? God, I forget who they were playing. They were playing. I forget who they were playing, but he had an opportunity in front of goal on the road against a really good team, and missed and was unable to convert. And it was one of those where, like, this is a young team that if you get those opportunities, you can't afford to throw them away on the road against a veteran team, and he wasn't able to convert it. So can he? I thought as the season went on, he got better about that conversion, but can he continue to get better?
Yeah, Burned. I think you're right, Burned. I think it was the game against Lou City.
I think it was too.
I think you're right.
But yeah, that's can he be that guy?
Yeah, and that's key. Michael Head, with the twos dropping down to MLS Next Pro, what's the game plan for development of tweeners? Is there a plan to work with a USL team for loans? I would hope so. Yeah, I would hope so.
Because I think you're hitting on something there that's going to be something we're seeing, and Burns talked about it as well. And I think we talked about it like after games at times. But yeah, you're going to have these tweeners, like
Centeno, Tiente. I'm trying to think of Heimar, guys like that. That we're used to seeing. As I'm sitting here and I'm trying to process the lineup from Atlanta United 2 last year from the fraction. It's like
some of these guys do not benefit from another year in MLS Next Pro, in my opinion. Like they don't. And that's you can feel however you want about it. I don't think some of these guys, like, they are in put up or shut up mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you're talking about development, you're looking at, let's see, from the back, it's Heimar, it's Nelson Orji, it is, who else are we putting in that grouping of the folks that are on the verge of aging out with Next Pro? Centeno. Those would be the three off the top of my head.
Centeno, Heimar,
Heimar, and Orji would be the three that I would.
Orji's an interesting one, man, because, like, dude, I'm trying to think, like, so. Yeah. And to Burn's point, Orji's too good for a youth reserve league. So here's the thing about Orji, Burn. I don't know if I ever shared this one with you. When talking to Jack last year, his favorite thing about Orji was, like, as raw as he was in some areas, the dude loved to defend. He absolutely thrived on making you as miserable as humanly possible while defending. And Jack's argument was that's something you can't always teach. So I think he's might be one of those guys that you're giving him, if he needs to be loaned out, fine, but you're giving him opportunity to see if he can build off of that, because I think the idea that he has that innate, I'm going to make you miserable and I'm going to make you suffer for 90 minutes and I'm going to enjoy it on my part.
Yes.
I think that's something you can't teach sometimes. And Orji, and you brought Orji in, and maybe you see if he's got something to build going forward.
Yeah, and I think that you got we'll use the term tweeners, since that's the term that's been put out first this morning. I think that as you look at those individuals, I think that the relationships with USL Championship sides become a part of your dynamic. And for me, if that is going to be something that you're going to do with players and not have them be a part of your MLS Next Pro element, which franchises do you get those relationships with? And that to me is the other element here in the room with these guys that may not make the 18, the 21, the 23, but they're going to need playing time. And so where do you send them? And so I think that that's going to be key as well, because you need to send them someplace where they're going to get minutes, and it's going to be a similar system and a similar idea to what you're trying to do here with Gonzalo Pineda and Atlanta United. I think that that's just as key when you're looking at placement for these guys. And Byrne continues. He says, Orji has big talent. I think he wasn't used to a team that plays with the ball. Defending was excellent, like Jack pointed out.
Yeah. I thought it was. And more than anything, it's to our conversation, he wanted to make you miserable.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the degree to which he wanted to make you miserable.
Yeah.
That's an art form that, like I said, that's for me, that's something you just some of it you just don't teach. Like, a guy has to want to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you can teach it in some aspects, but like, he has to want to make you just hate him for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I love that Orji gave you that. He's going to be a tweener to figure out what he is. You've got a couple more guys who are going to be in that conversation as well. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Oh, and to the point, Ricky found the larger followed individual, Jorge Nicola.
Yeah.
And Super Esportes, and the translated tweet, Palmeiras is still looking for a left-handed winger. Luis Araujo, one of the possible targets, has not been considered until now. So basically, it is a one-liner off of Jorge Nicola and the discussion of Palmeiras. So that's where that is. But I will posit this. When it comes to Luis Araujo, I will go back to the last home match from the 2022 season, where Luis said that he wanted to come back. He was asked, players, they're always asked in these last situations, what about next year, all these kinds of things. Luis said he wants to come back. He wanted to come back and basically atone for what happened last season. So that's the information that I'm working off of. Obviously, we're looking at guys like Jorge Nicola, and one sentence involving Luis Araujo. Yes, he's got 371,000 followers on Twitter. But once again, as Jarrett says, Brazilian sourcing and Brazilian S tier, we're learning about that one. So,
he might be a really good one. So we don't want to ever intimate that he did not without knowing.
Right.
It's incredibly irresponsible on our part. And it's incredibly naive and unfair on our part if we do that. But so, I mean, I don't know his track record. Something we're all learning. Yes. We haven't really had to learn the Brazilian market yet, but here we are.
Yeah, and taking Palmeiras from having watched them in the past, Luis might fall asleep with Palmeiras, because they've been very, very painful, very, very defensive, not all that offensively minded in the past. They've been a painful watch. So unless Palmeiras has changed things in recent history from how they've been, Luis might be going against type. So we'll see what that's about. But yeah, and then the other rumors that were out there, Atlanta United being close to the front of the line with Alexander Cayens. I think they're going after, I think Boca is the other team that's going after Cayens as well. Obviously, Boca can pay him a lot more because it's not a cap situation. But, keep an eye on that. Emilio asks about Nelson Orji. How does Orji fit here?
I mean, if he gets better playing with the ball at his feet, which I think he was doing as the season went on last year, I mean, let's say that Miles Robinson comes good and is able to, and not comes good, not to say that he's not good, but let's say he's able to really take that next step, then and eventually gets that move to Europe.
Yeah.
I think Orji's part of that conversation. We know Noah Cobb is as well. We know, Air Force One is here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Orji can be part of that depth tier. I don't know right now if he's going to be a guy who's getting consistent starts in MLS. But worst case scenario, like I could see a world in which Nelson Orji really figures it out, and even if you don't keep him, you sell him for a lot damn more than you paid for him.
Yes, absolutely true. And so, we'll keep an eye on Nelson Orji. The other question from Emilio is we're bouncing back and forth in the Twitch pitch. Let's say it happens. You have $11 billion to spend. How do you approach this year's roster? Is $11 billion the cap, or are we doing the Inter Miami before they got busted version?
Well, no one's trying to get no one's trying to put themselves in that level of hell. First of all,
do you trust any incomings will blend? Seems like a repeated cycle unless I see differently. But that's why you want to make your transactions where you need the most development. You need to make those transactions the earlier in the window, the better, to get them more adjusted into training camp and things like that. So I think that the blending, Emilio, you're looking for earlier transactions, those individuals that fit the system. You can, try to work your way through. And like I said, you could bring somebody in late training camp a couple of weeks before the beginning of the season. And if they know the system and they know what the expectations are, then I think that you're the individual that you're desirous of. I think that list, you can kind of work that one as you go. That's a work in progress. The guys that you really, really need for positions of need, you need to bring them in as quickly as you can at the beginning of camp, so everybody can get acquainted with one another and have that notion of, okay, you're going to do this, that multi-brain thing where everybody's working in the same direction. So, so that's how I'm looking at it. I can't. The biggest thing is, as we're looking at position groups and filling rosters, once again, we're cap constrained. I mean, that's the biggest thing here. You've got the young DP initiatives. You've got that you can work with, which is what they're doing with Thiago Almada and bringing him in. I think that young DP is something to keep an eye on, obviously, for positions and talent and, those kinds of things. So that for me is, another element in this. Yes, you do need experienced players, but also remember that you have these initiatives that are a part of things with Major League Soccer that can help you out in that regard, where it won't count as much financially when it comes to expenditures. So we have to, that's the biggest thing here is remember you're cap constrained except for young DP and other things, plus the development that you're bringing from within. So that's what you're looking at here. Let's see. You wanted to get into the thing with the German official, didn't you, before you go this morning, right?
Yeah, we can hit on that real quick because this sort of thing seems to pop up like, oh God, like once every couple months. Like it's not always the same time, but yeah, we can do this. Let's do it.
Okay, so Patrick Ittrich is a Bundesliga referee, and he was interviewed by Sport Bild, and he had some suggestions to make several changes to football rules. So we'll talk about this since Jarrett's here, but all the other stuff we've been talking about this morning, we'll continue that in hour number 2 in addition to this. Patrick Ittrich had a couple of ideas for changing the rules to the game. And so here's what Patrick Ittrich had on his mind. For a tactical foul in midfield, a free kick should be awarded 17 meters from goal. How often will we see such fouls then? So 17 meters is how many yards? Meters to yards conversion. Okay, so I'm going here. Okay, so 1 meter is equivalent to 1 point. So basically, it's just outside the 18 is what he's saying.
Okay.
So he is saying tactical foul in the midfield, free kick from just outside the 18.
Okay.
He says, how often will we see such fouls then?
I mean, but like tactical fouls do have their place. True. And I know like people don't always love them, but like I feel like they do have their place.
Okay. Ittrich also says if a player rolls on the floor 3 times and needs a doctor, get him one and make him wait outside for 3 minutes. How quickly do you think the player will stand up?
Depends. I mean, like, depends on the injury. Like, not all injuries are the same. Like, I don't know. It's one of the I think I get like the frustration with that, but it can get really tricky really fast. Like somebody gets like a stinger or something.
Yeah.
Or like a Charlie horse. Like you want like are they do they have to like get up and like limp around until it comes back to? I mean, what if they just need like a Theragun for a second?
Right.
They're fine, but
yep.
So I mean, you can massage that a bit.
Okay. Number 3, if a player insults a referee, send them outside for 10 minutes to cool down. Go cycling to warm up before coming back in. We can learn from handball in that respect.
I mean, I would love to have everyone mic'd up on a game because I would be very interested to hear all of the things that are said to the referee, because it's always been my understanding that if you ever like players that are talking to the refs and saying things that are out of line, generally don't last long. And if they do, that's on the ref. Like I've always understood it personally as players who do that, they don't last long in the game. Like the refs have a really short fuse with that.
You want short fuse? Here's his 4th one. How is the referee surrounded by 10 men after a decision? In my opinion, boom, boom, boom. 3 red cards. Play 7 against 10 now. That'd be fine with me.
Did Chris Penso write this?
I don't know, man, but that's the thing. I give refs a lot of credit for in these situations, wanting to keep the game as the game, and you understand that players, are losing their cool and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, when you get games where they are in your face and they bump you and they're in your grill, I could absolutely see what Ittrich is saying here. Bang!
Like if they start, well, that's okay. I feel like these are two different things. Someone getting up in the referee's face and pleading and not trying to negotiate, that's different than if somebody comes up and starts bumping the ref. Those, in my mind, I understand those as two different things.
I think that the latter is what Ittrich was getting at here.
Yeah, if somebody comes up bumping up and talking really aggressively and starts bumping you, I think like you have the freedom to throw the cards as you see fit to keep the game under control, because there is a level of respect the referee commands.
And not a lot of folks.
Now, are you also saying this is where I think you need some nuance. Are you also saying I'm going to be able to drop reds left and right if I get crowded out because of a bad foul and I didn't immediately reach for a card and a bunch of guys come up to me, doing the Italian hand gestures and trying to negotiate? Like, is that also like, those aren't the same things to me?
Yes. No. And Burn. Yeah. And Burn, to your point. Yeah. You guys realize that games without so much yelling at the ref are possible. Just watch women. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm a fan of less yelling in histrionics, frankly. It's like, this is the decision, but when it comes to, jumping in a ref's face and getting after it, then I'm all for the Chris Penso poker dealer, bang, bang, bang. I'm all for the casino dealer in Vegas.
And to Michael's point, I like it. There's no reason to surround the ref, throw some yellows. Absolutely. Where it gets tricky is I don't want a ref throwing a reds just because he got crowded out by people asking questions.
Right.
Now, if they crowd you out and start bumping the ref, obviously, that's always been a thing. You make contact with the ref, you're gone. That I feel like already exists. And if a ref's not throwing people out of the game for contact, that's on the ref. They should have full carte blanche to do that already.
Yep. Tom goes, I've been screaming that for years. No one can approach the ref except for the captain. Automatically.
Yeah. Okay. This is a rugby thing, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. A friend of mine played rugby in college, and had always told me this when we used to work together, that only the captain could come up and talk to the ref. Like if you were not the captain and you came up and started talking to the ref, like it is a huge no-no, and you could get in huge trouble for it. Like only the captain This was in a rugby union match, I believe, not sevens, not that abomination of sevens. Americans are good at it because we're fast in that instance.
Yes, exactly.
Playing the old style of rugby, not as much.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in the impression that only the captain can come up and have conversations with the ref, and if you're not the captain, you come up. Woe be unto he who does.
Yes.
She.
Yes.
But yes, to Burns' point, you don't get as much jawing in the women's game. Like, of course, they also I appreciate how often you'll get teams that won't crowd out the ref because they'll just self-police. Aussie rules football does this a lot. When I need him, Aussie rules football is notorious for this because it has that physicality that rugby has, but if they see fit to absolutely if somebody gets absolutely trucked from a tackle that's not great, the ref might lay out some punishment, but there's going to be some self-policing going on.
Oh yeah.
You lay a cheap shot on somebody, the target has been painted on your back, and there's not really anyone who can help you.
I like self.
You just have to know that it's coming.
Yes, I like self-policing. Are you back with us tomorrow?
That's the game plan.
All right. Well, then please enjoy the rest of your day in the real world. We'll be back at it tomorrow at 9:05 with you, sir.
Yeah, and Tom. Yeah, to Tom's point, and Michael agreeing with him. This is the one I agree with most. Only the captain should be talking.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
Yeah.
Forever and ever, amen.
Yep. Nix is expanding that to the person who got the foul called on them and or the captain. Then they can plead their case. So. I think that so Nix is like the person who got the foul called on them and the captain. He's looking for the 2-on-1 advantage in discussing things with the center ref. But those were the ideas of Bundesliga referee Patrick Ittrich, and he is Patrick_Ittrich on the Twitters. And those were
I don't hate them, but I think they would need to be. Some of them need to be workshopped with some level of nuance. So
yes,
that's it.
So there you go. All right, so we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, so this is the Patrick Ittrich. That's the guy who's the Bundesliga ref who came up with these 4 solutions from his mind. How's the referee surrounded by 10 men after decision? In my opinion, boom, 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 3 red cards, play 7 against 10. That'd be fine by me. So I think that was the one that seemed to have triggered the most. Insulting a referee, send him outside for 10 minutes to cool down. Go cycling to warm up before coming back in. We can learn from handball in that respect. Then you have to change the substitution rule if something like that's going to happen, unless it's 11v10. And then player rolls on the floor 3 times, needs a doctor, get him one, make him wait outside for 3 minutes. How do you think the players will quickly stand up? And then the first one, the free kick just outside the 18. How often will we see such fouls then? I don't mind the tactical foul. I really don't. But also it's becoming of the center ref to lay the card out in that situation too. So we'll see what Patrick Ittrich has in mind for other things as we go. All right, so we are getting close to the top of the hour, so that means one thing, and let me see if I can get everything squared away here, where I can actually do this the right way, and we're not hearing things in the background, and we're not hearing things on loop, and we're not hearing things too loudly. I think 19 was the number that we were looking at for a level. So here we go. Time for a promo. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's Eliminized Service. Eliminized Service deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use the Eliminized Service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. The turnkey process makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers, kind to the environment, offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. We like that. Different than Febreze or our other masking agents that we have either under the sink or above us in the cupboard, because when we reach under the sink or above us in the cupboard, grab that masking agent and you spray it in the air. It's the reason they call it a masking agent. It's masking the odor. You got a packing problem all the way down to the molecule, like our friends at Eliminized Service do with their proven scientific formula. Pricing very, very easy, one of 2 ways, either by the cubic foot or parts per million to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, go to the website. This is where I pick up my pen for those of you watching live on Twitch. Website is aluminize.com, but do us a favor. After the .com, go /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from so they can help you with your issues. Your full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, aluminize.com /Atlanta. Rotor Free Clean Fresh Air, it's Aluminize Service. Aluminize Service, proud sponsors of everything SBH. On a Monday, here for Soccer's morning show. And I wish there was a cleaner fade other than having to crawl the thing down from 19 to 0. So that's hour number one. Once again, it's been a pretty busy hour so far, discussing coaching, the coaching carousel when it comes to national teams. Roberto Martinez is now going from Belgium to Portugal, unemployed the sum total of a month. Didier Deschamps is sticking with France through the 26 World Cup. Zinedine Zidane apparently got some kind of notification, carrier pigeon, phone call, interfax, burofax from U.S. Soccer asking, hey, would you be interested? And basically was like, nah, but thanks for asking anyway. So, Zidane's going to kind of hang out for a little while longer. And the other things this morning that we got into, position groups for Atlanta United. As we saw the video being released of everybody running in rectangles and doing drills in close range, what position group are you paying attention to the most? And yes, choice D can be an acceptable answer, but for specificity, which position group are you really looking at the most right now at the beginning of training camp as we are 19 days away from the match against Chattanooga FC? And about 5 weeks away from AmFam 2, Electric Boogaloo at Mercedes-Benz Stadium with Atlanta United and Toluca, once again chasing after the AmFam Cup. So, once again, a lot of folks were like striker back line, center back. That was where a lot of folks were having their attentions drawn for the first day of training camp. And obviously, if there are any updates on anything, obviously, we'll let you know here in the morning, and we'll continue to roll through training camp as Atlanta United is now chasing after it once again here in 2023. Other random stuff from the timeline this morning, and once again, thanks to everybody here on the Twitch pitch for jumping in this morning. Airborne DJ, Tom Russo. Anyone who didn't see the City-Chelsea match yesterday, well, you find the highlights first and foremost. Yes. You need to see the highlights and see the third goal might have been the prettiest team goal I've ever seen. Yeah, this would be your required / requested viewing for the day is City and Chelsea highlights. And there is unwarranted the idea of a lot of gnashing of teeth when it comes currently to Graham Potter and what is going on at Chelsea, where the fans apparently were chanting for Thomas Tuchel. And so there you go already. But the thing is that Chelsea has, and the reason that Graham Potter took the gig from Todd Bowley, from Bowley Clear Lake, was that he was under the understanding that there was going to be patience in building the system. And right now, Manchester City knocked him out of the Carabao Cup before Christmas, knocked him out of Gummy Bear. Chelsea's in 10th place, 10 points off the top four. Premier League win at Stamford Bridge on Thursday, 4-0 loss in the FA Cup. And, you've got, and this is the thing that folks don't quite, let sink in, is that there have been a boatload of injuries. Christian Pulisic, another injured again, is just part and parcel to that list of injuries. Building a structure, and once again, you're trying to figure out how you can, how you can work things out offensively. And once again, if you're injured, the consistency isn't there. And so you're trying to figure out how you can do things as you're trying to, build. And right now in the Premier League, looking at the standings right now, And I know that a lot of folks were looking at Chelsea and their lack of offense. So here's where Chelsea stands offensively right now. Once again, you're talking injuries and trying to build a system and all this kind of stuff. Right now, 7-4-6 after 17 matches. Chelsea has scored only 20 goals in 17 matches so far this season. That puts them ahead of Southampton, Wolves, Everton, West Ham, Bournemouth, Forest, Palace, and even with Aston Villa. So they are 13th or 12th or 12th or 13th, tied for 12th in goals scored in the Premier League this year. They've lost 3 of 5, only one win in the Premier League in their last 5 matches. So obviously 10th place right now, and they're in that second group because we always have like those 3 groups. And the first group, it's safe to say, Arsenal through Spurs are that first group. Arsenal's got a 5-point cushion right now on Manchester City. Then Manchester City's at 39. Newcastle's played 18. They're at 35. Manchester United has a match in hand. They're at 35. Spurs at 33. That's Group 1. Group 2, Liverpool, Fulham at 28. Brighton at 27. Brentford at 26. Brentford, by the way, signing Romeo Beckham on the weekend. Chelsea at 25. Then Group 3, you have 10 points separating 11 from the bottom. Villa and Palace at 22. If you want to include them in the second group, go ahead. That's fine. Then you've got Leicester, who's lost 3 in a row. They're at 13th. Leeds, Forest. They're all at 17 points. Bournemouth at 16 points. They've lost 3 in a row. West Ham finally snapped their 4-game losing streak with a draw last time out. They're at 15, just out of the relegation zone by 1 goal over Ropes and Tom's Everton, 15 goals to 14. Wolves are at 14 points. Southampton is at 12. But yes, your requested look some point today, maybe while you're having lunch. Check the highlights from City and Chelsea. And City and Chelsea, it just was dominant from City. And yeah, who knew that you would have City and Arsenal squared away in the 4th round if Arsenal beats Oxford United? Who knew that was going to happen? So we'll see about that. David on Zinedine Zidane. Zidane took the U.S. job. All the parents complaining about him will poison him for being the France coach in 27 through 30. Ricky Ricardo about Roberto Martinez. Most of Portugal's pretty young outside of Ronaldo and Pepe. I don't think it'll go as bad as people think. Parzival is keeping an eye on the midfield. Michael Head, holding your breath, hoping the front office makes smart acquisitions. It's not a cop-out. No, I mean, smart acquisitions can take many forms. And like I said, choice D is an acceptable answer. But if there was one group that you were looking at specifically, then perfectly fine. But no, you're looking to fill the spaces. And Jason Nix has already called his shot about Alexander Cayens coming to Atlanta. So I know a lot of folks are right there with you, Nix, when it comes to bringing Cayens to Atlanta. David, need a center back. Awful conceding early and chasing games. When Franco was on, he was great. The team did well. When he was bad, it fell apart quickly. Need to shore up at center back and work Miles in slowly. And once again, that goes back to the Cayens dynamic. Tom, work off the assumption that the reason they're trying to move Joseph and mention freeing up the DP slots of priorities that they have someone or multiple targets already lined up just waiting. And that's the thing. Just because you don't hear anything, and this sentence structure is gonna drive my mother crazy, the English major. Just because you don't hear something going on doesn't mean that something isn't happening. That's like a triple negative, I think. So just because you don't hear anything doesn't mean that there's nothing going on. There's your triple negative. We don't know what we don't know. And I'm always under the operating idea that the front office is doing stuff in private and they're doing their thing. You don't want to negotiate in public ever, because then you put yourself behind any kind of decision making, because if everybody knows what your business is, oh, okay, so you could naturally be undercut in these situations. So work in private, do it, and then when things happen. That's how I look at it. You'll have reporters who will dig and find out information, and the Cayennes rumors and things like that. Once again, check your sources. Remember your sourcing. We have our S tiers, so just check your sources and all these kinds of things. You will see reporters posting things. Just check your sources, check your numbers, and check what it lays out for when it comes to possibilities and probabilities of player movement, both inbound and outbound. So that's the biggest thing for me. Emilio, 3G to Belgium. Claudio Reyna hired to manage the men's national team. I don't quite think that happens, but Belgium defeats the U.S. in the semifinal. Soccer for Good OG, good morning. Tristan Traeger is a great name for a pro athlete, though, yes. And it was always fun to call Tristan Traeger matches with Atlanta United, too, and then have his dad respond as well on social media. His dad always keeps an eye on what's going on social media, especially where Tristan's concerned. Burned. Thing I liked about Traeger is that he was actually goal dangerous. Have a lot of good young technical players, but not too many that can score goals. He could. And Parzival, we did talk about Jackson Conway, and Jackson Conway a part of the discussion. But Emilio, he says, I don't want kids in important positions to have to rely on them to carry that field sector. I've said it before. So, but you've got kids that develop, and if they develop past their rate, and there's a confidence factor there with the coaching staff, no matter how. You saw with Gonzalo Pineda last season that there was confidence in having Caleb Wiley. There was confidence in having George Campbell there, but it was also, yes, it was out of necessity, but at the same time, seeing Caleb Wiley getting the minutes he did, seeing George Campbell getting the minutes he did. If you are a young, and I put that in quotation marks, player, meaning that you don't have a whole lot of first team experience, but you're showing during the week that you're grasping and you're getting what the staff wants you to do, then there's not going to be any fear about putting them into lineups. And so just look at ability. Don't look at the birth certificate. Look at what they're doing during the week, and then if the confidence is there, then you'll see them in the 18s and so on. Don't necessarily look at the birth certificate when it comes to the ability of a player in any situation. Could be national team, could be your favorite team, what have you. Birth certificate, it's a guidepost, but don't stay locked into it. More Jackson Conway comments. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up here in hour number 2. Nick's getting into our discussion with Patrick Ittrich, the German official, about his changes to the game. Very hard to legislate if or how bad a person is hurt. That is absolutely true. But I think what you can do is, in your mind, keep an eye on particular players during a match. If a player is getting beat up, then you ought to be able to know if a player is being tackled repeatedly, like the Top Gun, then first and foremost, I think you need to flash some yellows for persistent infringement on that particular player. But if it's something that just happens and a player is injured, hopefully your ARs can help you out in that situation to let you know, okay, yeah, this one's where you need to give it some space and let the player get the treatment that he needs. So that's kind of a thing. It is a dangerous precedent. People already grab their head when they go down, even if it's not a head injury, just to stop the game. Yeah, and that's something that that's something to keep an eye on. I don't know. I don't know who got to Patrick Ittrich, Nix. I really don't. But it'd be interesting to find out what, unless it's just his experience in the Bundesliga that got to it. But no, that's the big thing that you're looking at there. And don't know. I don't know where this came from Patrick Ittrich, unless it's his time in the Bundesliga. But no, it'll be fun to continue to talk about this. Reminder, 1v1 with Alyssa Nichols, the newest FIFA recognized referee, the pride of Jackson, Mississippi, and you've seen her in USL Championships. So we'll have a 1v1 with Alyssa Nichols coming up later today. We'll post it to the network later this afternoon after lunchtime. It'll be good to find out a lot about Alyssa and how she got involved in the game and how she's grown. And if she thinks of herself, how much of a role model she views herself and what it's been like for her to see the game grow to where it is and where she sees the game. But Alyssa Nichols, the one of the newest FIFA recognized officials here in the United States. We're going to have a 1v1 with her coming up later this afternoon. So that one's going to be a fun one. Getting into the idea of the blackjack dealer with the Reds, bang, 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 from Patrick Ittrich. Yeah, I like I like the limited number of folks that are only eligible to talk to the official. But yeah, if you get dudes who are crowded, I know that there are some that will take a situation where if they're getting crowded, they'll sit there and they'll just they'll wave everybody off. It's like, all right, y'all clear out. And then the center ref will sit there and he'll address the situations and go from there. But then there are those that if they get bumped, dude, if they'll get bumped, sometimes they'll be a little bit more patient because they understand the gravity of the game and things like that. But then you get those that are blackjack dealers, and they'll go bang, 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 and they'll just start carding everybody. They'll walk out of the pile, they'll go backwards, and they'll sit there and they'll go bang, and give the cards out. But yeah, Emilio, hate the crowd in all cases. Absolutely. Nix, you did have the interesting variant. The person who had the foul called on them in addition to the captain, so they can plead their case. So keep an eye on that. Let's see. So there's Nix betting that Kynes shows up in Atlanta. Soccer for Good OGs right there with you. Always solid for the fantasy team. Yes. Nix, you don't think Potter makes it to the end of the season? Abramovich is gone, but Boley Clearlake did say that they brought Potter in for the build because they knew it was going to take a while. And we don't know the extent of Christian Pulisic's injury at the moment. We'll keep an eye on that too. But yeah, that was part of the build. The build was why Potter wanted to come in the first place. He knew it wasn't going to be a quick trigger. Of course, it's the Premier League and anything is possible. I just wonder, if you're Boley Clearlake, and you don't bring in, you decide that you're done with Potter. The fans have been chanting for Thomas Tuchel this past weekend. What do you do? Who do you bring in? What big name do you try to bring in? Do you try to bring in somebody like Zidane? Is Zidane going to want to come to the Premier League and be a part of that? Don't know. Then Chelsea, Michael Head. So many similarities. Significant teams in their leagues vastly underperforming. Let's see. Knicks, done this so often, though, wait until late to get the team together, and then we're scuffling to get going when the season starts. Should be ready to hit the ground running, ideally, when training camp starts. But remember, you can only that only works if you're standing pat with your players. You've got to bring players in. And like I said, we're only 9 days into the window. And then once the window closes, you've got another 3 weeks before the first match on the 25th. So basically it's almost a 7 or an 8 week runway that you can take in stages. First 30 days here in the January window where you can make your transactions and then get everything squared away for the 25th. So, I mean, you could be Seattle and having to do things really on the hop and only have a month to put things together before you have to go to Morocco and be in the Club World Cup. And I know that a lot of folks would sit there and say, yeah, I'll take that. But, I mean, I want to see how Seattle performs in the Club World Cup. But thing is, also, if they go to the Club World Cup, they lose their first match, they're out, and they come back home. It's like, it's one and done, one and out. So we'll see. Higher turnover than a fast food joint? I don't know about that. I don't think that but the thing is, I mean, Knicks, if you're looking at turnover, it's probably, I mean, you look at the injuries, and that's probably the big thing that creates those turnover numbers. What was it last year? Was it 20 injuries, 17 players, 20 injuries, 37 players used? So, I mean, that to me, that puts the numbers there. Yeah. So let's see what else is on the board. Knicks. Now, I didn't know about this either until you saw the video. Ozzy's glorious hair. There's nothing wrong with Flo. Absolutely Absolutely nothing wrong with flow. Having a massive flow is always a good thing. Ozzy's glorious hair. You wonder if the newly recovering Ozzy is going to just stick with the long flow. That to me is that's going to be one of the this is going to be another one of your inquiring minds questions when it comes to Ozzy Alonso. Does he stick with the long hair? Do we go Samson here with Ozzy Alonso? We'll keep an eye on that. Also on the board, conversations with Uncle and Ricky and Burned on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of patience with the rebuild. It will take at least this entire season, 3 windows, to rebuild the squad, and that's fine. Too many contracts can't be transferred or traded. Nothing you can do about it now. It's okay. Gareth Bale officially retired. Okay, so officially retired, huh? So Gareth Bale is trending. So much for that. Yeah, retires from professional football. Fabrizio Romano has been made and retired. Thanks to all my former clubs, it's time for the next stage of my life. So here's the statement from Gareth Bale. So he leaves a champion. Shoes of a champion, Gareth Bale. After careful and thoughtful consideration, I announced my immediate retirement from club and international football. I feel incredibly fortunate to have realized my dream of playing the sport I love, truly given me some of the best moments of my life, highest of highs over 17 seasons. That will be impossible to replicate no matter what the next chapter has in store for me, from my very first touch at Southampton to my last with LAFC and everything in between. Shaped a club career that I have an immense pride and gratitude for. Playing for and captaining my country 111 times has truly been a dream come true. Skipping ahead, couldn't have ever dreamed it when I first started out at 9 years old. To my previous clubs, all my previous managers and coaches, backroom staff, teammates, all the dedicated fans, agents, amazing friends and family, the impact you've had is immeasurable. 3 more paragraphs, last paragraph, so I move on with anticipation to the next stage of my life, a time of change and transition, an opportunity for new adventure. Signed, Gareth Bale. And so, of course, FIFA reaches out to Gareth Bale right off the top. So Gareth Bale moving on from playing professional football. Yes, Knicks, right there with you. Wouldn't surprise me if he tried to qualify for the European Tour. Knicks, go out on top. Go play golf. No doubt. Ricky Ricardo, regardless of how it ended in Madrid, always a legend, scored some of the craziest goals I've ever seen. Burned. Cherundolo with a big sigh of relief. And, yeah, he was great for Madrid in big games. I acknowledge that. Yeah, Cherundolo, big sigh of relief there. Yes, I agree. Ricky Ricardo, if he would have shot the video on a golf course and announced it, that would have been pretty epic. Yes, absolutely. Niall, Nick says some of the goals are all-timers. Niall, goal against Liverpool was iconic, even though it's the one that was a heartbreaker for him. Audible gasp when he scored that one, according to Ricky. And Ricky and Niall going back and forth, one of the best goals he's ever seen. So, Gareth Bale retires. Okay. But he does go out, giving you one of the craziest endings to a season ever. And by the way, that video at LAFC's website, yeah, the Champions League Finals goal is absolutely insane. The goal that he scored, I mean, he's in for like a handful of minutes, and then he scores for LAFC against Philly. 1.6 million views on the Twitters just for that 20 seconds. No doubt he'll be a part of MLS history next. No question about it. Brought in, kind of managed his minutes. Steve Cherundolo doesn't have to do that anymore. Gareth Bale retires, and he retires a champion in Major League Soccer, and now it's up to John Thorrington to figure out how he's going to spend money to go right up against the cap one more time. So what does John Thorrington do now for an encore? You brought in Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale brought you a championship, was a part of it. Wouldn't say he was a part of bringing you a championship, one of the craziest moments in Major League Soccer history. Now what do you do, John Thorrington? What do you do for an encore now? Yeah, and I think, Ricky, that would be wise to use him as some kind of ambassador. If Major League Soccer uses him as some kind of ambassador, if you had him to be an ambassador in Europe, that would be, I know it would be a bit of an uphill climb, but to have him as an ambassador for Major League Soccer, I think that would be a pretty strong play. But Gareth Bale retires from professional football. So there's that broke on a Monday morning. So I know that a lot of you've been posting your memories and such. Speaking of memories to be made, let's get into gossip, rumor, and innuendo this morning. And we'll see what's going on there. Arsenal interested in 19-year-old Barcelona defender Alejandro Balde, who's yet to sign a contract extension. Newcastle preparing for a summer move for Bayer Leverkusen's Moussa Diaby. Aston Villa close to a breakthrough in talks to sign 29-year-old Spanish defender Alex Moreno from Real Betis. Remember Unai Emery's ties to La Liga, where he knows the league and can scout these folks. Southampton considering a move for Celtic's Dyson Maeda. We'll ask Jared about that. If I'm Dyson Maeda, I don't go because you're going to get relegated and sold off again. Racing Club rejected Southampton's bid for 20-year-old Argentine midfielder Carlos Alcaraz. That's from Ornstein on Monday. Southampton have had a £15 million bid rejected by Lorient for Terem Moffi. That's from the four-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Manchester United have dismissed speculation linking Harry Maguire with Aston Villa and do not expect him to leave the club in the January window. From Ben Jacobs at CBS Sports. Qatar Sports Investments, owners of PSG, are looking to make a minority stake in another team and have held exploratory talks with Tottenham chairman Daniel Levy. They want to have another minority investment in a Premier League side. So early go-rounds have been with Spurs and Daniel Levy. Manchester City expect to complete the £6.5 million signing of 19-year-old Argentina U20 midfielder Maximo Perrone from Vélez Sarsfield this week. Once again, the four-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Roma director Thiago Pinto confident Chris Smalling will sign a new contract. Manchester United, Newcastle, Arsenal, Chelsea remain interested in Memphis, who could be on his way out of Barcelona in January. Atletico Madrid want to re-sign former academy graduate Manchester United forward Alejandro Garnacho, but United are unlikely to let the 18-year-old Argentine leave. Manchester United considering a move for Edin Dzeko, who spent 4 years at Manchester City. Once again, remember, four-letter paper. Manager Ruben Amorim says Sporting Lisbon do not fear interest from Tottenham and Pedro Porro and 23-year-old English ex-Spurs midfielder Marcus Edwards. That's from the Standard. Spurs tracking Brentford's Spain goalkeeper David Raya as they seek a long-term successor to France's Hugo Lloris in the summer. So that's round one of gossip, rumor, and innuendo going into the British papers their own selves. West Ham keen on Sevilla forward Yusuf El-Nesri. They need to bolster their attacking options. Yes, they do. And it was interesting we've been mentioning Graham Potter this morning. Pep Guardiola said out loud, give Graham Potter time. Stick with the Englishman. Cristiano Ronaldo could make his debut in Saudi Arabia as a part of an exhibition side in a friendly against PSG. So you might have Messi v. Ronaldo. I think the queue to get tickets, was at 250,000 deep when tickets went on sale for that one. Getting into the papers, as always, avoiding as best we can the 3 and the 4-letter paper. Daily Telegraph. We mentioned this tracking of David Raya. Burnley and Besiktas are in discussions about canceling Wout Weghorst's loan and getting that done after the Netherlands striker pleaded with the Turkish club to let him join Manchester United. Not getting a lot of minutes, not very happy, wants to leave. Avoiding the 3-letter paper, Daily Express, Manchester United received an apology from the Premier League for scheduling their match against Crystal Palace for later this month. The decision means Eric Ten Hag's side will play 4 games in 12 days. Squad rotation, definitely going to happen there. Leeds United sporting director Victor Orta could bring 2 new players to Ellen Road over the coming days, with a full agreement edging closer for Jorginho Ruder and a bid dispatched for Azzedine Ounahi. We know Ounahi with his successes as a Leeds United put plans in place to pull away from the relegation fight. Let's see. Daily Record. Excited Michael Beale says he can't wait to get his hands on his new Rangers recruits. Admits he's not sure if he'll have them wrapped up in time for Hampton. Hearts have won the race, the lone race for Aussie World Cup Wunderkind Garankuol. Lee Johnson insists his Hibs side earned the right to celebrate for stopping the rot after a week of getting slaughtered. Transfer Center with everybody looking at transfer rumors. Let me see if we can get into transfer news of the day. Remember, we still have the Mykhailo Mudryk transfer to Arsenal. That one's on the table. Joao Felix possibly to Arsenal. Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea. You want to pay a release clause of $120 million? Yeah, you go for it. Folks wondering whether or not Wout Weghorst is in fact the answer. The Alex Moreno fee for Aston Villa from Real Betis, €15 million, 13 million pounds. He hasn't traveled with the rest of the Betis squad to Saudi Arabia for the Spanish Super Cup. The move could be closed this week. Championship clubs monitoring Leyton Orient's Daniel Nkrumah. Middlesbrough made an inquiry for the 19-year-old. Made his first team debut for Leyton Orient last season. Would fit into a U21 setup. Been on loan in non-league this season in order to get a regular taste of senior football. 6 months left on his current contract. Leyton Orient seeing Nkrumah as one for the future, so we'll keep an eye on that. AC Milan, PSV Besiktas, and Antalyaspor all interested in signing Sheffield Wednesday midfielder Fisayo Deli Bashiru. Entered the final year of his deal and can talk to foreign clubs. Wednesday want him to extend his contract, but the player wants to assess all his options before signing his next deal. Besiktas has released a statement amid Manchester United's interest in Wout Weghorst. And it is after the match of our football team against Kasim Pasha in the Super League. There was a need to make a statement due to speculative news in the media about our football player Wout Weghorst. The claim that there is an exit clause in our football player's contract stating that his contract can be terminated with compensation of €2.5 million in case an offer from the Premier League is fictitious. The news that the player in question will leave the team on Tuesday is completely untrue. The initiative regarding Wout Weghorst belongs entirely to Besiktas Gymnastics Club. Everton not interested in loaning out Michael Keane. Southampton knocked on the door for an initial inquiry about taking him to the South Coast for the rest of the year. Everton would prefer to sell players to give them more funds to reinvest in the squad. Keane and Mason Holgate are among the players that they are listening to offers about. We mentioned Sevilla forward Yusuf El Nesri in West Ham. 25-year-old has a difficult deal because of 2.5 years left on his deal. So we'll keep an eye on that. Sevilla struggling at the wrong end of La Liga, only above the relegation zone on goal difference. May not be ready to let key players go because they are still trying to chase players there. So we mentioned the Spurs news, the Roberto Martinez news, officially official. Quote from FPF President Fernando Gomez: I appreciate the enthusiasm and ambition with which he, meaning Martinez, received the invitation. This is an important moment for the national team. Besiktas want to cancel Dele Alli's loan deal, send him back to Everton. Hasn't made an impact at the Turkish club. 1 goal, 7 appearances, but there's no early break clause in the deal. Everton will want full payment of the loan fee, thought to be around £1 million, as well as the agreed amount of contribution of the player's wages. Because of that, unlikely that he'll return to England during the January transfer window. So we'll keep an eye on those transactions as well. Also on the board this morning, Nick's, you had a dream that Pep was announced as manager of the USMNT. Hey, I mean, nothing wrong with knocking on a door. Whose chili was it, Nix? He says maybe it was your delirious, maybe it was the chili that you had. Let's see. So Michael Head, Connie just tweeted, Amar Sadic signed 1 year with 2 option years. That is good news. We saw what Amar did last season, and Amar really did grow into his role with Atlanta United. So Sadich has re-signed. Let's get into his numbers from last year, courtesy of our friends at FB Ref, and break down the season that Amar Sadich had. And like I said, I mean, he definitely was one that was trusted by Gonzalo Pineda. 23 matches played, 18 starts. And when it came to his work, right-footed midfielder, and here's the numbers to look at for Amar Sadich. XAG was top quarter in the league. Top third of the league in passes attempted. Top 30% in pass completion at 84.5%. Tackles, interceptions, and blocks. 87th percentile in tackles, 85th percentile in interceptions, 87th percentile in blocks. Having that kind of work from Amar Sadich, very, 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 very cool to see Amar Sadich grow into his role with Atlanta United last year. And what our friends at FB Ref do is they have similar players, and they'll give you like a list of 10 to over the last 365 days as to players to compare to Amar Sadich. So here are the players. Here are just some of the players that they put in to compare with Amar Sadich. Gaston Jimenez with Chicago Fire, Dax McCarty with Nashville, Aiden Morris with the Crew, Mark Delgado with the LA Galaxy, Diego Chara from Portland Timbers, plus others in Brazil and such. But Amar Sadich, through the numbers from FB Ref, compared to Gaston Jimenez, Dax McCarty, Mark Delgado, Diego Chara. Well done by Amar Sadich last season in 2022. And so Amar Sadich back in the fold in the midfield for Atlanta United in 2023. So that's very, very cool to see that come to the fore for Atlanta United. Today's matches, and we'll get into other news here and where you can watch stuff. Christian Pulisic injured Thursday on a challenge from John Stones, and it was a solid challenge, but now listed as out for weeks with a knee injury. That was Graham Potter's assessment after Manchester City. According to Potter, quote, Christian opened up his knee in the game the other day, still analyzing it, but it's going to be weeks. So Chelsea has lost 6 of their past 9 games. And here's a list of the injured players for Chelsea. Reece James, N'Golo Kante, Ben Chilwell, Wesley Fofana, Edouard Mendy, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Armando Broja, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who was unable to travel to Manchester because of a back injury, and now you can add Pulisic. So that's 9 players that are injured for Chelsea right now that Graham Potter is having to juggle through. So we'll keep an eye on the news out of Christian Pulisic, but it looks like it's going to be weeks. The quote from Pep Guardiola when it came to discussing the Graham Potter situation, quote, I would say to Todd Bowley, give him time. I know in big clubs results are important, but I'd say give him time. What he's done at Brighton is outstanding, but we need time in the first season. This is Pep. I had Messi in Barcelona my first season, so I didn't need 2 seasons because Messi was there. We are suffering. Chelsea did not muster a single shot in a first half, even Potter described as painful. Could point to the injury crisis, 9 players sideline led to Bashir Humphreys making his senior debut in defense, but he also conceded in performances must improve quickly, quoting Potter. Results in a small space of time are not positive. You can make excuses and look for reasons or say it isn't good enough. Both of those answers are correct. We have to keep improving and stick together because clearly we are suffering as a football club, and it's not nice at all, but that's where we are at the moment. We can't do anything apart from do our jobs better and work harder. You understand the supporters' frustrations. We respect that, but our job is to do our job and keep working. He was asked about the locker room, and Potter added, I think there's support in the dressing room. We're just going through a bad moment. We have to stick together and keep working. And also in stupid fans down here, the FA is investigating alleged incidents of homophobic chants by City fans. FA spokesperson said, quote, we strongly condemn the use of the term rent boy, and we are determined to drive it out of our game. We continue to work closely with the Crown Prosecution Service as well as the UK Football Policing Unit in relation to the use of this term, end quote. That comes from Soccer America. So we'll keep an eye on that. Soccer on TV today. La Liga Santander, Athletic, and Osasuna is at 3 on ESPN Deportes. Fox Deportes, Liga MX Femenil at 8, Santos Laguna and Atlético San Luis. 2 to NA at 10 o'clock, Liga MX, Monday Night Football, Pachuca and Puebla. FA Cup on ESPN Plus is Oxford United and Arsenal. The winner of that one gets Manchester City. That's at 3. Athletic and Osasuna is also on the plus at 3. Huesca and Albacete is also on at 3. 2 matches in Serie A. Hellas Verona, Cremonese at 2:30. Bologna and Atalanta are at 2:45. And so that is that's your notifications on what to watch. We'll get into juice boxes here in just a sec. So juice boxes for today. Today's matches, we'll run through the matches that have not started as tradition. It is Asia, Eastern Europe, Middle East, North Africa. That's going on right now. Asia Cup of Nations is at 11:15. Probably catch that on either your favorite VPN or Paramount Plus has been known to show those. Also, you have Superliga in Turkey at noon. Trabzonspor is a favorite on the road. Also, Gaziantep is a favorite on the road. Once again, those are at noon. Verona, a favorite at home at a plus 131 against Cremonese. That one's at 12:30. You got Premier League 2. You still have the Copa Sao Paulo de Juniores going on in Brazil. Lower divisions in England. Atalanta is a plus 121 favorite on the road at Bologna at 245. Arsenal, big favorite, obviously, on the road at Oxford United at a minus 526. Athletic Bilbao is a minus 169 at 3 o'clock hosting Osasuna. Huesca and Albacete are within the margin of error, basically both around a plus 180 against each other, as is the draw. So juice box guys are just like, yeah, even across the board. Take your pick. That one's on you. And you've got Liga MX Femenil. Toluca at 6 o'clock favored against Xolos. 6:05, León, a minus 141 hosting Necaxa. 8 and 8:06. Tigres, a big favorite hosting Atlas. Santos Laguna at a plus 110 hosting Atlético San Luis. And Liga MX at 10:10. Pachuca at a minus 189. Puebla's a plus 480. Your draw's a plus 389. Liga MX, by the way, the Clausura is off and running, and you've got stuff going on today. You've got stuff going on late week, and you've had a handful of matches. You still have some clubs that have not started their rounds of the Clausura. Tigres had a big 3-0 win against Santos Laguna. Atlético San Luis won a 5-goal shootout with Necaxa on the road. Pumas won against FC Juarez by the score of 2-1 at home. Chivas, and it was, if you saw Ronaldo Cisneros dressed out for Chivas beat Monterrey at Monterrey by the score of 1-0. Tijuana, Cruz Azul, a 1-1 draw. Club America and Querétaro was a goalless draw, and so we have 2, 4, 6 teams that have not started the Clausura yet in Liga MX going into the tail end of their season. Yeah, I mean, Amar Sejdic, like I said, Emilio, he really grew into his role with Atlanta United in the midfield, really showed he showed promise, and then he showed growth, and it was really cool to see what we saw out of Amar Sejdic in 2022. Also, a couple of other things before we go. Joshua Winder in Lou City is being looked at by some teams overseas. That comes from Tommy Scoops. Memo Rodriguez to LA Galaxy. And this week, we've already seen the home openers that have been released in USL Championship and USL League One. And we will keep an eye on the full league schedules. They should be released later in the week as well. So a couple of other news in Major League Soccer. Orlando City signed a DP winger in Martin Ojeda from Godoy Cruz in Argentina. That happened over the weekend. That's their third DP ahead of the season. Deal runs through 2025, club options 26 and 27. The DP spot opened up when Mauricio Pereira re-signed this season on a non-DP deal. So Ojeda joins Facundo Torres and Ersan Kara as DPs on the roster. So that is the front three for the purple team, and that's how it's going to be all season long. Ojeda wore the captain's armband for much of Godoy Cruz's 22 season, 32 goals, 21 assists, 97 matches for Godoy Cruz, and he's played across Argentina for Racing Club and Huracan before he started with Ferrocarril Oeste. And also, Chicago Fire signed defender Arnaud Soquet from Montpellier. We mentioned Charlotte FC last week signing Burnley midfielder Ashley Westwood. And also it appears that the Houston Dynamo are close to signing free agent defender Franco Escobar. So keep an eye on that. It'd be the 7th offseason signing by the Dynamo if it happens, heading into their season with Ben Olsen at the helm, and signed Brad Davis in free agency. And they also signed Ivan Franco, remember last week, from Paraguay on loan from Libertad. And so traded to LAFC before the 22 campaign, 1 goal, 20 appearances in his season in the black and gold. Obviously, Houston, if he signs, would be his 3rd MLS club. And it would be Atlanta, LAFC, and the Houston Dynamo involving Franco Escobar. So we'll keep an eye on all of that. So Amar Sejdic signs 1-year contract, option for 2 more for Atlanta United. And it's been a very, very busy morning. FA Cup, we didn't quite get into all of those results from the weekend, but you did have we did mention the big win by Manchester City, 4-0 over Chelsea on the weekend. Also on the board, you're going to have a couple of replays, but Stevenage, probably the big underdog win at a plus 1,200, knocking off Aston Villa yesterday 2-1. Cardiff and Leeds will be a replay, and you had on Saturday, just quickly going through, Liverpool and Wolves will be a replay. Newcastle lost to Sheffield Wednesday by the score of 2-1. West Ham won 1-0. If you haven't seen the highlights of Wrexham and Coventry, go find those. So that's your other game that you need to look back on for your lunchtime viewing pleasure, because it was crazy. Wrexham and Coventry, 7-goal thriller. Wrexham wins at a plus 354 by the score of 4-3. Also, Blackpool blew out Forest by the score of 4-1 at a plus 307. Burnley knocked off Bournemouth. Burnley at the top of the championship right now, coached by Vincent Kompany. They'll be an interesting one. Right now, they're in obviously they're in one of the automatic promotion spots for the championship. They get promoted, they might make things interesting in the Premier League when they come up next season. Chesterfield and West Brom, another crazy one. That's going to be a replay as well in the FA Cup. Fulham beats Hull by the score of 2-0. Brighton put 5 on Middlesbrough. And let's see, Southampton beat Crystal Palace 2-1. Leicester had to score late to beat Gillingham. I know that Nix was really biting his nails on that one. And Spurs had to score late to beat Portsmouth by the score of 1-0. So next match is coming up in a couple of weeks. In the 17th, the 17th is when the replays happen. Then the next round of the tournament, the 4th round, will be on the 28th. So the 7 replays are going to happen on the 17th. And then you end up with the next round on the 28th. West Ham and Derby. Fulham hosting Sunderland. Burnley is at Ipswich. Manchester United is hosting Reading. Jessica Charman, I'm sure, will be biting her nails on that one. Spurs at Preston. And let's see, Southampton hosting Blackpool. You have Leicester at Walsall, and Wrexham is hosting Sheffield United. Sheffield United is a favorite at a minus 128. But the 17th of the replays and the 28th is round number 4. So it looks like that is another round of the show for this morning. Thanks to all y'all for hanging out. Like I said, biggest news, Amar Sejdic signing for Atlanta United. And we'll continue to ask as we go this week when it comes to your position groups, which ones you're keeping an eye on and what your opinions are as we go forward here with Atlanta United, as they are running rectangles, doing drills, and they're back at it for training camp with the match against Chattanooga FC 19 days away. So Thanks to Jarrett. Thanks to y'all, as always, for coming back on a Monday. Tomorrow is Tuesday Thoughts. Once again, later today, our 1v1 with Alyssa Nichols, ref that you've seen in USL Championship, has now been granted just given FIFA recognition. So she is now a FIFA-sanctioned official. And so we'll catch up with Alyssa on that and kind of go behind the scenes of what it's like to be an official in this day and age. So Alyssa Nichols 1v1 coming up on the network a little later today. And late next week, we're going to catch up on the story about the Marshall Islands. And the idea of the Marshall Islands, one of the smallest nations that doesn't have a national team, starting a national team. We'll catch up with their technical director and their head coach, Lloyd Owers, about that as well. Very, very cool story that is making the rounds, and we'll catch up with him late next week. I don't know if the choo-choo goes to Finley Stadium. I know that it might be close, but it goes to, I'm trying to figure out where the line is, Nick. Now that you got me thinking about it, I'm going to look, but might be close to Finley Stadium. I don't know if it drops you off directly there, but yeah, 19 days away, Chattanooga FC and Atlanta United. So thanks again for everybody, for all of you guys for hanging out. For Jarrett, for Jason, for Nick, I'm just John. Played safe, everybody. We'll be back again tomorrow for Tuesday Thoughts and everything going on around the world when it comes to the sport that we talk about every single day. Mucha plati, y'all. Played safe. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out. And since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. We'll do it again, 9 to 5 tomorrow morning.